The never-ending incidents of young people dying by suicide continue to grip South Africa and make national headlines. Many reasons for these incidents have been cited, from bullying to depression. Today we shine the spotlight on Teen Suicide Prevention Week, an annual campaign that began yesterday and ends on the 21st of February. To discuss this, we're joined by Vanishaa Gordhan, the project manager at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. A very good morning to you. Also joining us is a life and career coach, Sanele, a lecturer who is the brains behind the hashtag Matric Ungazibulali campaign. A very good morning to both of you, and thanks for making the time. Vanishaa, let's start with you. How prevalent is suicide among young people in South Africa?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. So the at-risk age for suicide is adolescents in South Africa. And, you know, on the news and through the country, we've been noticing that there's a lot of news on, suicides that have been completed of young people, of teens. And it's just that they never had the resource, or they weren't sure what to do, or maybe a loved one never noticed that, they're feeling down, they're not feeling well, and maybe was aware of the warning signs.
So, Sanele, academic performance that is less than satisfactory, plus peer pressure, are some of the things that can impact on young persons. What kind of interventions are there to prevent the worst case scenario?
I think the most important interventions that we should be putting together as a country is making sure that we support and we focus to our learners, other than trying to compare them, and making sure that as a community and as a society, we are there for our young people, because our young people are under so much pressure coming from all over, whether at home, at school, and in the community as a whole. So I think we need to make sure that we are there. That's why some of us, we started the hashtag Matric Ungazibulali campaign, so that we can focus on them.
Tell us more about that campaign. Since you've started running it, what have been your most important findings about the causes of suicide in young people?
Mostly our young people, when they feel neglected and when they fail, they think it's the end of the road, and they don't have someone who they can sort of talk to. They don't have someone who they can confide to. I mean, when I started the campaign, I am using my personal educational journey of doing grade 10 twice, grade 11 twice, and grade 12 twice, just to inspire them, and I'm saying to them, it's not over when you didn't make it in matric. You can still push. Today I finished my PhD, and at a very young age, because I didn't give up. So young people decide to take their lives because of such pressure that comes from home, and feeling like they are neglected, feeling like they are compared with other young people who have succeeded.
Vanishaa, just from the side of SADAG, what are the main causes of youth suicide? Because we presume that we know what their struggles are.
So exactly as Sanele mentioned, the pressure they're experiencing. We've all gone in through this COVID space, and it's been hard to transition, hard to adapt to hybrid learning, online learning, and then going back to school. It's also wearing the mask and changing the way we live our lives. And in addition to matric, as you mentioned, is already hard and difficult, it's even more hard in this space. It's more difficult to carry on and more difficult to manage that little bit of time schedules even that you have. So the warning signs, are so important to pay attention to. So if parents or loved ones or even older siblings are noticing that, the teen is not eating well, they're not sleeping well, or maybe their behavior has changed. They might have been this super bubbly, jumpy person, always, in the limelight and always excited about life, and now they've withdrawn and they've isolated themselves, and maybe they aren't producing at school as well as they used to. So it's about asking the question, I've noticed that you haven't been feeling well, or I've noticed that you haven't been looking after yourself. Do you want to talk about something? So it's about having that open conversations, and that makes the biggest difference.
I like what you're saying about siblings, but also about those conversations. And I want to ask you, Sanele, here, how important is it for a young person to have role models and be generally coached about life?
It's very important. I think I wouldn't have maybe gone through that horrible journey of repeating those classes if I had someone who was giving me a roadmap in life. Because if you have a career coach, if you have a life coach, this is someone that you can always confide to. This is someone that you can always the mentees that I have, that I coach and that I mentor, they always sometimes choose to come to me to speak about things that maybe they are afraid of talking to their parents about. So it is very important that we have young people being mentored and coached. And I think it's also the reason why I started the free mentorship at the Park program across the country, to avail ourselves as young people to mentor young people as well.
Just about the importance of having conversations, Vanishaa. As a mom who's raised 2 teenagers, the one thing I realized is that parents are the last people teenagers want to speak to. How do we bridge that divide?
I think it's all about that conversation, that dinner time conversation or that breakfast time conversation. It's about having that open conversation that if you as a parent, and I mean, we all went through this COVID space, it's still here, it's not post-COVID yet, but we've all been going through a difficult space. SADC has seen pre-COVID 600 to 700 calls a day, and in the first month of lockdown, doubled in calls with a lot of people who were experiencing symptoms of anxiety, experiencing symptoms of depression, but weren't sure what this was. So it's about having these conversations, but sharing to the young ones that, I'm also not feeling well, or I didn't feel well at certain times. And it's about having that open conversation and being, that give and take relationship. And absolutely, it is difficult to have that conversation with parents, but older siblings, as I've mentioned, a favorite teacher, a favorite aunt or uncle, have that support system. So you as a teen need to be like, okay, who is my support system? Who can I go to when I'm not feeling well? And I know, and if you don't have anyone, you can phone into the SADC line and you can speak to one of the counselors just to get, that counseling, that containment, and maybe where to go for help and how to maybe speak to your parents.
And Sanele, attending a new school or entering university can be a culture shock and overwhelming at some time. How do you service a service such as yours ease the process of blending in as a young person as they navigate their way around this new academic setup?
It is very difficult to go into that new, It's very difficult to go into that new space. The transition from school to university is dramatic. You're studying one book when you're in Matric, whereas when you're going to university, you have 5, or you have 5 textbooks. So the workload is more, the expectation is more. There's a lot more that goes into it. And also maybe the pressure is more because finances are an issue, or you've moved far from your friends that you were in school with. So it's about taking it one step at a time, building that support system. The one thing that we learned within this COVID space is that we can still connect to our loved ones. Keep connecting to your loved ones. Build a time schedule. Plan your time. Plan your classes. Speak to your advisors at university. Use those facilities and resources to your benefit.
And Sanele, you were saying about the transition?
Yes, as she has mentioned, I think the support is also there in some institutions. I will always encourage young people to use those support structures. I think mostly getting into a new institution and being new there is terrifying. I remember myself being a fresh student at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. It was kind of terrifying because I was coming from rural areas, coming to urban areas. So I think don't lose touch of your home or people from way back at home, but at the same time try to connect with young people that are there at varsity, and make sure that you build your network as well with new students and also matured students in your campus. To have that kind of support structure. I think one resource that is very important that I've put together, it's just this wonderful book called How to Finish Your Qualification in Record Time. I've put together some of the steps that you can utilize as a young person entering into tertiary.
Thanks to both of you, Sanele, Gamede and Vanishaa Gordhan, talking to us about this very important conversation that we'll continue to have throughout the week, just looking at ways to assist teenagers as they navigate the teenage time in their lives, and this really confusing and difficult time in their lives. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.